Hey everyone, welcome to episode 15 of my podcast, Is Breakfast Included? Now today's pretty exciting for me. I got to talk with a true rock and roll legend. He's played with Ozzy Osbourne, Quiet Riot, Whitesnake, and Ronnie James Dio. You can catch him out right now on the road with the Guess Who. That's right, I'm talking about Rudy Sarzo. Rudy and I had a great conversation. He told me about his humble beginnings and how he made his way out to LA to start what turned out to be a legendary career. I'm going to let him tell you all about it. Let's check it out. Tell me who you are.
Who am I? Boy, that changes. That changes constantly. Who am I? I mean, it's not changes. It progresses.
Yeah, we can start with your name. Everybody knows who you are.
Yeah, my name is Rudy. That's all we need to know. Rudy Sarzo. Okay. Also known as Rudy Sarzo. That's, who am I? Boy, that's, that used to be a question that I ask a lot of people, especially when I would do the rock and roll fantasy camps, as a counselor.
Uh-huh.
And it's and I guess it would be an unexpected topic for me, rather to talk more about what I do mentoring than what I have done as a professional musician. But to me, it's all tied in,
Yeah.
It's all connected, whether I'm mentoring or performing, in front of an audience, and I learned that from Randy Rhoads. I learned, Randy, people ask me, about my memories of Randy, and the first thing that comes to mind is him being a teacher. And I know this because I taught at his mom's school, Musonia, right next to him, and he taught me how to teach. Because I had no idea. He had been doing it for ages.
Yeah.
Being around the whole musical environment, the academic environment, from his family. His mom owning the music school, Musonia, and all of that. So, so he understood about how to be a proper student, because when you're a kid, let's say in school, right, regular school, for me personally, especially I had two phases. One phase of a student myself was in Cuba, in my own native language, and it's like you learn how to speak and then you go to school.
Yeah.
Right. So you understand everything. I mean, almost, at least you can communicate, or the teacher can communicate with you in a language that you understand. And you learn more words when you're in school as you progress in school. So by the time that fifth grade came around, that was my last grade in school in Cuba, in my own language. Then my family comes to the United States, getting away from communist Cuba. And all of a sudden, my mom puts me back into fifth grade in the American school system, U.S. school system, because she figured, well, it's a new language. It's going to have challenges. So at least maybe he can, meaning me, mainly, maybe I can reference what I already learned in Cuba. And then I know that and be able to make connections with, okay, so so let's say in the fifth grade in Cuba, I learned about this. So I'm learning again in the fifth grade in the United States about the same thing, but there's language barriers. So this will give me an opportunity to connect languages, because I'm learning the same thing, but now I'm learning it in English, a language that I don't know anything about.
Yeah.
Really. I mean, it's like I'm completely foreign here. And this is 60 years ago. Less Latinos in the United States, especially in Miami, right?
Yeah.
And then when we moved to New Jersey 60 years ago, most Latinos being Puerto Ricans, they lived in the Bronx. There weren't that many living in Jersey, so that's why West New York came such a over the years, over the decades, became a very populated with Cubans through the
Really?
years. But it's not the case 60 years ago, when my family first moved to New Jersey. So learning I've always been aware of learning because I struggled with it once my family moved to the United States. So I've always been aware of the importance of communication, being able to understand each other when we learn and when we are taught or when we teach. And so I am very, very aware of that. And I'm very grateful to be able to learn, which means that I'm constantly rewiring my brain. And by rewiring my brain from learning, it changes my DNA. So I'm completely a different person every day. And so is everybody that is on a learning pattern.
Yeah.
Being really teachable, And so when you ask me that, it's like, that's really interesting.
Well, like we were just talking, like we still had to learn the technology to do this,
Oh, absolutely. And that's today's technology.
I know.
A year from now, there's a whole different technology going on
we
have to embrace. Yeah.
As soon as you buy like an iPhone, the new iPhone is coming out. You're being built.
Yeah, but mostly iPhones, any of those devices is based on software. So, on what they do, because I've experienced this, the software gets so advanced based on the current technology that they happen to be in. And I'm talking about today's technology, 10 years ago iPhone, and 10 years from now iPhone.
Yeah.
It's going to change, which means that the chips that they manufacture at a certain point, the operating system, it's not relatable. So your phone becomes basically paperweight.
Yeah.
It's like,
and we all have a few of those paperweights in the desk.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you have to get rid of it and get the new phone that actually the new operating system is designed for that chip. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you something. We're going to take it a little bit less technical. When did you start playing bass?
Oh my God. That's another question, because my playing bass really evolves right now. I started out as a guitar player, not a good one, because I'm talking 60 years ago. And when I say a good one, I mean not an educated guitar player. I was not educated. My family could not afford to give my brother Robert and me guitar lessons, because we were Cuban refugees. So, we were just barely, making a living so we could pay the bills. And there was no social media, the social network like YouTube or anything like that, where people teach, including myself. As a matter of fact, I have lessons available on an app called Go-DPS Music Live. It's a free app, and it has a lot of concerts, but my lessons can be found there. So if anybody says, where can I get a lesson from Rudy? Oh, just go for free. Go DPS. Go-DPS Music Live app on your whatever Android, iPhone. But anyways, and actually, if you start watching the first, from lesson 1 on, I start playing. It's a 6-string bass, which is basically a bass guitar. The standard bass guitar, as you know, being a tech,
mm-hmm.
and a bass tech, especially, it's basically it's the first. It's the E, A, D, and G off the guitar, but just those 4 strings in a larger gauge,
mm-hmm.
A bass gauge, right? So what I do is I have a PV Cirrus, and I know you're very familiar with the Cirrus basses.
We'll talk about that in a bit.
Yeah. And so I have a Cirrus bass that I 6-string bass Cirrus that I got a long time ago, and I just string it as a guitar, not as a six string bass would be. With traditionally, goes from B, low B, to high C.
Yeah.
And what I do is I just go the traditional tuning of the guitar, and I have a set of strings, the 105 to the 4 up to the 45, and then the other two is a 30, 38 and 20, 28 strings.
Okay.
Gauge. And to me, that makes more sense. It's more melodic. I'm more creative on that instrument because it's a guitar tuning. But so I can play guitar. I don't know, theory, I guess, on it. I can play like a guitar, and not be bound to have to like be moving around so much in the neck to reach notes.
It's more familiar with you.
Yeah. Even though I am not a guitar player, because if you hand me a guitar, I'm so used to playing the bass with the string spacing.
Yeah.
Then when you give me a guitarist, you might as well give me a ukulele. I can't play it. I can't play it with as much dexterity and definition as I can a bass.
So you give lessons on this. What is it? Go dash.
Yeah, go. Yeah, there's a little line like a dash, like a GO, and then a dash, and then DPS.
Okay.
Music live. And actually I have lessons. I don't get personal lessons. It's lessons that I have uploaded.
That you've recorded and then you've uploaded to watch.
Correct.
Okay.
So people can, and I wanted to offer something different. So it's actually called Breakfast with Rudy.
Oh, okay.
That's what I do for breakfast.
Is play bass.
I play bass.
Right on.
Yeah. I get up, I have my coffee, and with CBD in it, which has really made an incredible difference for my focus and retaining information. My nephew has a company called Life Pack Organics, and they have non-THC CBD.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in CBD myself.
Yeah. And it's powder. One of the products is powder form, and I pour it in my coffee, activates it a little bit with the heat of the coffee, and I drink it, and it just within 5 minutes I'm awake. It gets me out of that fog in the morning, and I watch about 5 minutes of the local news to make sure we're not in the apocalypse yet. And and then once I'm certain, then I pick up the bass and I go to YouTube and I'm gone. I'm exploring new, and the more I explore, the more actually I can actually access information and make things connect beautifully. Make them connect exactly the way that I hear it in my head, which is my ultimate goal. My ultimate goal is to anything I hear to connect the physicality of the instrument with the consciousness, with my consciousness.
Yeah. Well, right on, man. Well, once you started playing bass, who were your heroes musically? Like who did you want to emulate, or not so much as emulate, but like who did you respect and listen to for inspiration?
Yeah, everybody. I mean, come on, and I started playing in the I started listening and then trying to emulate, trying because I just didn't have the resources or the mentorship that would say, no, you're not doing it. You're doing it wrong. It's like this, which is a one-on-one.
Mm-hmm.
That's something you can really get I mean, you can get it just from observing how it's done. But I used to get most of my information to going into to live shows when I was a kid in Miami. That was my best school at the time. I mean,
Yeah.
because that's rock and roll. There was no rock schools or rock camps back in the 60s and even 70s. This is something new. And so my musical education, as far as rock and roll goes, was just about going to see the pros do it. The people that I heard on the radio, they would come on tour, and I'd go and watch them.
Yeah.
So it was like, it was like from John Entwistle with the Who. I seen the Who. I seen Queen. Everybody, you name it.
Yeah.
Chris Squire, yes. And so it would be kind of like, I witnessed that when I went on tour, for the Slip of the Tongue tour for Whitesnake, we had Steve Vai, and and I got it. I got it because on Steve's side of the stage, it was just guys, with notepads taking notes. Because this is 1990. Now it will be iPhone, video, whatever he's playing, but they were, and again, to another degree. Because by 90, there were more of the music, rock and roll shredder schools, right?
Yeah.
When I went on tour with Randy, there was only in areas like, let's say, Boston, where with Berkeley, there would be students showing, guitar students showing up to waiting for Randy backstage
to ask him questions.
Yes, waiting for him during sound check. And Randy will always, of course, he will stop and talk to them, and and going back to learning how to teach from Randy. If you look at any photos of Randy Rhoads on stage, it's very clear what he's playing. There's a lot of clarity in the way he holds the guitar. It's like he's teaching the first few rows what he's doing. He was not one of those guys to turn around and hide his technique. No, not at all. There was a lot of clarity in his playing, and so going back to the what we're talking about. Oh yeah, every time I talk about Randy, I lose myself because I go there.
Oh no, it's fine. We were talking about your influences.
Yeah, the influences. So I have one-on-one influences by going to shows, of my heroes. So I would say just about everybody. I've learned from so many people. I'm kind of like a big paella or jambalaya of musical influences and people that I learned from. That I actually inspired me and still do today. But I gotta tell you something, and I'm gonna say this for the younger guys. There's gotta be a time in your career or your musical journey, that you have to cut the cord. You gotta cut the cord, and once you feel like you have enough information, and that you have enough information and enough sources, musical information of how things work theoretically to your style and to your own musical destiny, that you have to stop recreating what somebody else has created and make your own creations. And I'm talking about the big picture, your own creation, the creation not only stylistically, musically, your own image. Don't try to be anybody else. Just be yourself. Really find out who you are.
Yeah, that's great advice. Your journey. Speaking of journeys, your journey started out on a friend of yours' living room couch, and just completely changed overnight at the recommendation of Randy Rhoads.
Oh, you mean? No, actually, my journey started way before that.
Okay.
It's
your journey.
You have to prepare yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, my journey really started when I saw the Beatles performing on Ed Sullivan. I think everybody from my generation, that's the pivot.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. That started, and it's always either the Beatles or Led Zeppelin or Kiss, depending on which generation you came from.
Yeah, but okay, this is what happened.
Uh-huh.
And I'm going to give you my perception. Of course, everybody has a different perception, but this is mine. This is what I experienced. See, my generation's evolution, and I'm talking about guys who are rockers that are of my age.
Mm-hmm.
For anybody from 60 to 70 years old, that was alive and might be young, but still was you perceive a certain event, and I'll go as far as saying cosmic event because it was so big. To see the Beatles playing on Ed Sullivan in 1964 was not just musical. The musical revolution that created the British invasion. It was cultural, it was social. They were coincided with civil rights, everything, the whole movement of the 60s,
Mm-hmm.
And so it was a social cultural event, not just musical, right? And you could go. It was actually the band, and when I say 64, the Beatles, because that was just the Beatles getting into the industry, making a shift, and they were the ones who brought in certain elements that resonate more today than it even did in the 60s. And I'm talking about spirituality. They were the first ones, really, and it was. I will have to hand it over to George Harrison for that one.
Yeah,
to start bringing the elements of spirituality on a consciousness level, like the planet up until that time in history, especially with technology, mass consciousness. Because now you have radio, now you have records, now you have television.
yeah.
So it was like the beginnings of not only mass communication but social networking, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it was one sided. It was like the Beatles delivering a message, and then all the bands either gravitating toward that message, creating a massive consciousness, making music. It was like, let's say if in the inner circle of the Beatles you got, Mick Jagger, you have the Rolling Stones, you have a Beach Boys in there, Mike Love. And I'm talking about the trip that they made to India with the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, and there was this massive consciousness going on. I believe Donovan was there. There was all these musicians that it wasn't just the Beatles singing spiritual music. It was everybody that was there. The Beach Boys became more spiritual, in their lyrics. And then so it's not just a movement of one; it's a movement of many, that transcends. And then George, when he went solo, he took it to a whole different level. If you listen to the spirituality on All Things Must Pass as an album, it's tremendous.
Yeah.
Tremendous influence, that influence, so we're talking about musicians that were influenced by Bob Dylan. And I think what Bob Dylan did is it gave them, the Beatles and that whole generation, a hall pass to say, hey, you don't have to be singing about teenage themes for the rest of your career. You can mature as personally and musically and carry that message to the masses,
Right on, man. That's a little deep, Rudy.
Well, we're just getting started. It might be a little. It might be very deep by the end.
Good. I expect nothing less.
It's like digging a wormhole.
Yeah.
Once you get in, enjoy the ride.
Yeah. So your journey started with the Beatles.
Yeah.
Watching the Beatles on Ed Sullivan.
It really did. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you made your way from once you started playing, you made your way from Florida, to
Yeah.
LA. I'm not sure. Miami, was it Miami? You said?
Well, I was living in Miami actually, when I saw the Beatles in 1964, my family was living in New Jersey at the time. And
Okay.
then by 67, we moved back down to Miami. And that's where which was great because, that's when I really started getting serious about playing music and got my first bass, professional bass, Fender Jazz, 67 Fender Jazz, and started playing in bands around town. There were a lot of gigs. So I was playing basically every night by the time I was in college. And then, my brother and I really, really we realized that if we stayed in Miami, there was no music scene as far as, get record industry. There were a lot of studios, Quietriot being one of them, where the major, the albums that influenced us were being recorded right down the street, but there was no music, there was no record labels. They were just sent down, from the headquarters in New York or LA to come down to record, especially Atlantic Records artists at Quietriot. And it was like, okay, we got to, my brother and I said, well, we got to get out of here if we don't want to become a top 40 musician for the rest of our lives. If we want to actually make our own music, we got to get out of here. So we did. We traveled up to Utica, New York. My brother got married, settled down in Jersey, and I continued with my journey, traveling towards LA. I mean, it's a long story, but finally I got here and stay here. Mm-hmm. I left a couple of times because I kept running out of money. It's very expensive to live here, and so making a living out of being a musician was pretty tough. So I knew that what I really, wanted to do was actually make music. So I went back to Jersey with my brother. I played there for a little while with him and my sister-in-law. And then I got enough money to return to LA in 1978. And, I've been here and that's when I joined the Randy Rhoads version of Quiet Riot.
Yeah. Which
78.
And how long did that version of Quiet Riot exist before Randy left?
Yeah. I joined in the late summer of 78. Our first gig was October 6th. So I was at October 4th, 4, 5, and 6 at the Starwood. So I was in the band for over a year, maybe a year and a half, until Randy joined Ozzy. And then that broke up the band. And there was a version of the band or a branch that was Dubrow. Dubrow. And I would play, especially towards the end when I moved into Kevin's spare bedroom. I slept on the floor, not on the couch. Okay. On the floor, on shag carpeting. So it wasn't too bad. It was short. At least it wasn't hardwood floors and a sheet. And I got the call to audition for Ozzy. Thanks to Randy Rhoads recommended me.
Yeah. In your book, I like the way you describe how the way it started out very humbling for you. It was very humbling, but at the same time, everything moved so fast for you. How did you relate to that?
Well, I mean, that was my first time being in a world-class touring, not just class, but in the world, I went from like being nothing, nowhere, nobody to all of a sudden playing with Ozzy.
Yeah.
And I'm going at that speed, which is
Ozzy speed. At the speed of Ozzy.
Hyper speed here. Mm-hmm. And so I just buckle up and be aware, open my eyes and ears and absorb as much as I could, to learn again. Huge learning curve right there. But just like, coming to the United States without knowing the language, I did not know the language of that level of professional musicians.
So you just
And
adapted along the way.
I learned.
Yeah.
And fortunately, I had Randy to teach me again.
Yeah.
Because he had already done it with Ozzy in England. He already been on the road with him. The Blizzard of Oz did a tour of the UK at least, and maybe some shows in Europe. I don't know exactly because I wasn't there.
Mm-hmm.
But definitely they went on the road. Between the recordings of Blizzard of Oz and Diary of the Madman. Yeah.
And did the success that you experienced with Ozzy while you were with the Blizzard of Oz band, did that prepare you? Excuse me. Did that prepare you for the success of the Metal Health era of Quiet Riot, as you guys just blew up?
Yeah. And it did prepare me because, like I mentioned, I learned a lot. I would say 90% of what I know about the music industry, I learned from watching Sharon.
Mm-hmm.
Sharon, later Osbourne, but at the time she was Sharon Arden, Don Arden's daughter,
Mm-hmm.
and she was managing the band. She wasn't yet married to Ozzy. They got married in 1982, July 4th, 1982 in Maui.
Yeah.
And but before that, she was just working with the band, working for the band. It's an interesting dynamic when I use the term working for, because management in theory work for the artist, but when your company, let's say Jet Records, is management and is the label and is the publisher, it's hard to fire a manager that actually runs everything else about your career.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And were you able to, with that success, with you learning from Sharon and the ins and outs of touring with Ozzy, were you able to share any of that, or kind of be a mentor to like Frankie or Carlos or Kevin once Metal Health or once Quiet Riot started rising in fame? Were you able to like help them prepare for all that? Because you had already experienced it with Ozzy,
Yeah,
correct?
and to some degree, Frankie had already been on the road with big bands. I mean, not his own band, because Quiet Riot was, we were all, equally members
Mm-hmm.
of the group. It wasn't like we were hired guns by anybody, And but Frankie's, just like my experience, had been in somebody else's band up until then, and which is a whole different dynamic of being in a band.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a lot of pros and cons, of course, and so Frankie, I would say not as much as Kevin, but it's a band, and which is, for example, let's say if you're in Ozzy's band, is Ozzy is responsible for all the decisions,
Mm-hmm.
and also management, who in this case will be Sharon, who happens to be his wife, And but when you're in a band, it's just 4 guys or 5 guys in a room, trying to make sense of things, and take the band in certain directions. And sometimes people leave because they're not in sync with the same consciousness
Yeah.
of the band as a whole, So I mean, I could ask you the same question because you've been there, but
Yeah.
since
Well,
you're asking me,
yeah.
and maybe the listener doesn't realize that you relate to that because you work with bands.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I spoke to someone a few weeks ago, and they explained it like this: the 2 hours on stage are amazing. It's the other 22 hours in the day of dealing with these people, or being able to communicate with everyone, and that's where
Yeah,
the problems come in.
yeah, and to me, that's the best opportunity to learn
Yeah.
about life and humanity. Uh, because when you're on stage, you're just recreating. Either you were part of the creative process in the studio, So you're recreating your own creation, or you're recreating somebody else's creation.
Yeah.
So you're just recreating. And even the audience is recreating. The audience is recreating their best memories in life through your music, because they might come and listen to a certain song that takes them to high school, to the prom, or a beautiful summer where they met their significant other, things like that. So they're recreating in their mind the past.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're recreating on stage the past.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what you're going to get the most out of life is that experience when you get off of the stage, and you got to deal with the now.
Yeah, the reality.
The reality. And or your own reality, because we all create our own realities by making choices every day, every moment, every thought is a choice that we choose to think, or stick with, or keep thinking, or take action.
Well, one of the things I've always we've only met once. We met for a few minutes a few years ago. So I don't want people to think like we're buddies and we hang out. But one of the things I've always been a fan of yours, one of the things I've always respected about you is when I read interviews or listen to interviews you've done, you never speak ill of anyone. So you were part of Quiet Riot for mental health, and then the follow-up Condition Critical, and then you left. And the reasons why you left are solely your reasons. You don't have to talk about that. But did you sense a sigh, like some relief when you left the band? Like whatever made you leave, was there some relief and also kind of like fear of the unknown now that you were leaving one of the most successful bands in the world?
Well, see, I already done that with Ozzy.
Mm-hmm.
I had left one of the most successful bands in the world for the complete unknown. And in a way, I'll even go back further. Okay, when I was sleeping on the floor, and I got the call to to audition for Ozzy.
Uh-huh.
I turned it down the first time because my known, not the unknown, but my known was the fact that I was playing in Angel, a band that I really liked and I admired, and all of that, right? So that was my first, like, wow, okay, I'm playing in a band called Angel that I really dig, and I dig all the guys and the music and everything, but we don't have a record deal. The band had just gotten dropped by Casablanca, and they were in search of a record deal. So that's why I was in a recording band with no record deal, sleeping on the floor, because there was no money. There was no budget to give me any money, And okay, but that was my known, and I want this. I want what Angel gives me, because I know what this is, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I get the call for Ozzy, and I turn it down, and actually, this is what happened. I turned it down, and Kevin said, because he answered the phone, "Who was that?" I go, "Oh, that's Sharon. She's Ozzy's manager. She has offered me an audition, and I turned it down because blah, 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 blah." And he starts yelling at me how crazy I was to turn down, that opportunity. And also the fact that I would get to play with Randy again. And I go, "Oh my God, whoa, wow," whatever. So
it all becomes clear for a second.
Yeah, exactly. Which is one thing that I've learned what to do. And this is just a side note. I don't make decisions like that, immediate decisions, like gut decisions anymore, because I've made a few that were pretty bad, but turned out to be okay because I got a second chance, but only because I got a second chance.
Yeah.
Okay, this one being one of them, the Ozzy. So the next day, Ozzy calls me and he says, "Listen, we haven't found the guy that we're looking for, and Randy keeps saying that you're the guy." And by then I say, "Yes, of course, I'll come down and audition." So I met him that night. Randy comes over and picks me up, and we go to a local restaurant, and Sharon was there, and Tommy Aldridge was there, and Ozzy tells me, "Man, all I want you to do is just be able to play the songs, So basically, I had the gig. All I had to do was play the songs,
Yeah.
learn it. So the next morning, Randy comes over early before my audition and teaches me the song. Now, remember, me playing I Don't Know and Crazy Train. Now, 60 years later, there's thousands of 10-year-olds that can play that song, right?
Yeah.
40 years ago, when this happened, even to the day, 40 years ago, I didn't even have the record. The song was not played on the radio yet, so because the band were about to begin the tour to promote the record. So Randy had to come over, play me the song, teach it to me, and then I had to retain that information quickly and then go on stage and play that with Ozzy and Tommy Aldridge. And of course, Randy too, an audition for the gig of a lifetime, right?
Yeah.
So all of these come into place. You just do it, and so I got the gig, and so it's just, I've learned not to turn anything down until I give it a lot of thought.
Yeah. So after you left Quiet Riot, you formed a band with Tommy Aldridge from the Blizzard of Oz band, and is that what led to the two of you being asked to join Whitesnake?
Yes and no.
Okay.
And this is why. In 1984, Whitesnake was the support band for Quiet Riot Condition Critical Tour, which is where I got to meet David and all the other guys in the band. Also, I got to be exposed to the inner conflicts within the group.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I did not experience it. I just listened to everybody's perception of what was going on, right?
Yeah.
But when there's so many different perceptions, polarized perceptions, you detect that there is not musically, because musically they were spot on every night, but socially there was something going on, which I was experiencing in my own band too. So I gave Quiet Riot the notice that I was going to leave the band before we started the tour, Condition Critical. So on the last night of the tour, we threw a party for Whitesnake, thanking them for being on tour with us. And as we are saying our goodbyes, David gives me a hug and whispers in my ear, "We're going to be playing soon together." So I figure, well, somebody in the band must have told him that I was leaving, And so I officially leave the band after the tour. And then Tommy and I start working on putting our band together, and we get a call from management, Whitesnake management, to come and meet them. We do, and they offer us to join the band. And during the process of the offer, I find out that still, there's an individual that there's a very strong conflict going on with David.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I learned that, I'm thinking, I just left the situation. I don't want to have to join another one. So I declined. I really declined. And eventually Tommy did too. So we continued while David and in 1987 band, Whitesnake band, went in the studio to record the 1987 records. And then during the process of that record, everybody was gone except for David. So when it comes time to do the video for Still of the Night, we get a phone call, Tommy and I, from John Colatner to come and, to perform on the video. And we thought, well, this will be a really good opportunity to test the waters of what, of what's going on with Whitesnake. Because we knew that, David was leaning towards asking us to join the band.
Yeah.
And at that time, because he had no band, and So we go in and we see Adrian Vandenberg, who I knew casually, and Vivian Campbell, who I also knew casually, and everybody's in great spirits. And we make the video, and it's like, okay. And then that's when they call us into officially, management to ask us to join the band after we made the video, because it turned out so well. There was a lot of great chemistry. Always has been with all the members of Whitesnake. Wonderful chemistry that I've experienced with them. And so we, we do it, and the rest is history.
Yeah.
We have fun.
Yeah.
We have fun. I mean, we still do when we get together as people, which is the most important thing, because, again, talking about, the dynamics in the group. One thing that makes it a little bit easier when you're in somebody else's band is that you find out that there's less friction, because it's understood who makes the calls here, whose band it is, right?
Yeah.
When you have like I did with Quiet Riot, 4 guys who have an equal voice, that's when it gets a little loud, because everybody's trying to make the point at the same time, So that is a tougher dynamic than to actually being in somebody else's band.
Yeah, and you've experienced both, so that's, you can speak.
Oh yeah, I have. Oh yeah, absolutely. But you know what? You know what's really interesting? It all depends. In each case, it all depends where the individual's perception happens to be at that time. At my age right now, I wish I had the maturity. I want to say maturity because wisdom comes with age.
Yeah.
You cannot be even if you're a very wise child, well, by the time you're a grown up, you're going to be even wiser, So this is something that only happens through maturity, whether it's musical or whether it's human maturity. I wish I had the maturity or the wisdom that I had. Let's say I left the band almost like 35 years ago when I originally left Quiet Riot. Even though having said that, I got to tell you that when we reunited in 97, my purpose for going back with Quiet Riot, with the guys, with all the original Mental Health band members, was to get closure.
Mm-hmm.
Because it lingered, the thought of what if I would have stayed in 1985 and not leave the band? What would have happened to Quiet Riot? Because there was a major decline. Subsequent records, as far as popularity, record sales, and ticket sales, and eventually the band broke up in 88. They had a different singer, Paul Shortino, come in 87 to record with them. And after that tour, the band really broke up and they didn't get back together again officially. I mean, Kevin and Frankie Kevin had his own band with a different drummer. And then Frankie joined, and then Carlos came in, and things like that. And then officially in 97, we reunited.
Yeah.
And then in 97, we toured together until 2003, and I stayed there. And there were certain things that, again, came to the surface, especially towards the end, that led me to leave the band in 84, but I did not leave this time. I had to get closure.
Mm-hmm. Did you get that closure?
Oh yeah. The band imploded. The same problem that arose in 1984-85 reared its ugly head around 2000, 2001, 2002.
Mm-hmm.
Then in 2003, the band just imploded. Right? We cannot continue. It wasn't because I left the band. It was because we cannot continue as a band anymore. And then I got my closure, having to do with that. Not my closure about the band Quiet Riot, but my closure about playing with the each individual in that situation. I got my closure regarding the 22 hours, not the 1 hour, whatever, 1 hour and a half, 22 hours and a half off stage, 1 hour and a half on stage. That one still, it's like a separate entity.
Yeah.
You know, it's really a family when you're on stage, and then it's a functional family on stage.
Yeah.
Then it's a dysfunctional family off stage. You know, so I got closure about that.
Yeah.
Then as I you know, life moves on, I only carry with me the great, wonderful memories, because there were so many.
Yeah.
If I'm gonna, and I like to travel light. When I tour nowadays, I fly. I do flyaways. I never check in anything. Everything is a carry-on. I learned how to travel light. Everything that I need, it's in that little bag.
Yeah. If we go back, if there wasn't the Quiet Riot, there wasn't the Ozzy or the Whitesnake or the Dio, if you go back to your younger days, did you ever want to do anything else other than play music? Was there ever anything else in your mind that you thought about?
Well, I actually got my education in college in mass communication, because this is pre myself thinking about leaving Miami to pursue a career in the music industry, you know, recording industry. So prior to that, I thought, if I get a really good education on about, you know, mass communication, which cover radio and television and motion picture, then I have more opportunities, you know, to maybe you know, plan B, you know. And but there was really no plan B in Miami for me, because again, you know, radio, even though I still retain a Cuban accent, back in the 70s, I wasn't Cuban enough for the real type of Cuban radio that they had back then.
Yeah.
You know.
Isn't that always the case with any of the Latinos? Isn't that always the case?
Yeah. So here I am, you know, I wasn't Cuban enough for Cuban radio, and then I had too much of an accent for FM radio, you know, Anglo radio, for rock radio. And so, okay, so that's out. And then television, there wasn't much television production going on in Miami at the time. It was just basically Ivan Torres. It's a producer, Ivan Torres production. He did a show called Flipper, and he did a show called Everglades, and maybe Gentle Band. Okay. Yeah. Now, what he was known for was that he had the biggest water tank production facility for film and television in the world. So, as a matter of fact, the Thunderball James Bond movie water fight scenes were filmed in this huge water tank. And so I went in to do an internship, and they asked me, so do you scuba? And I go, no, I wouldn't even swim. And they go, oh, I'm sorry. Big part of this job is you going in that tank and cleaning it. So I was like, okay, well, there goes my opportunity to get into the television industry in the 70s in Miami, you know.
Yeah.
And so I didn't. So what happened is, right in that time, I got my first opportunity to leave Miami to go tour with a rock band, a rock band outside of Florida. So we actually started touring in Michigan, you know. So that was the end of pursuing that. And I said, yeah, I think there's life out in music outside of Miami.
Yeah, I think you're going to stick with the plan A.
Yeah, I stuck with the plan A. Yeah, but what happened was that my education in mass communication really helped me with just about everything that I've done in music. Like, for example, radio. I have my own radio show now, 6 Degrees of Sarzo on Monsters of Rock Radio, and that really helped me, to really. I put it this way: I was not going into unknown territory. I learned how to be a DJ. I learned how to talk. I learned how to produce shows and things like that. So, so that education came back to really help me out,
Yeah.
And with television, I learned so much about being in front of the camera, behind the camera, and lighting, and the importance of it. That once I started making videos, it was like, oh, I know how to do this.
Yeah.
So I felt incredibly comfortable with it, and lighting, where to stand in the right spot on stage. As it's all, everything
it's all about the mark.
hit the mark. You got to hit the mark, and why, and the importance of it. And so it's my mass communication education really paid off. As a matter of fact, last year I got inducted into the my college Hall of Fame.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
that's awesome,
so,
man.
Yeah, I mean that's such an important validation to me because it's the school that gave me the knowledge, the education to be able to tackle any of the challenges, especially technical ones, entering a world that I had no experience. That's how I was able so quickly, so easily be able to gravitate towards it, and to gravitate in a way that it leaves a mark. You want to leave a mark. You want to carve your notch into that stone.
Yeah.
And without that education, I would have been like a deer in front of the headlights and going like, oh, what's going on?
Yeah.
What do you mean, make a video? What is this about?
You've touched a little bit about your Cuban roots, and I have to ask you this question. If you don't want to answer it, that's great. Being a Latino in the music industry, especially in the 80s, did you ever run into any resistance or anything like that?
To be honest with you, no. And I have to say this was my experience. Okay. So we have to go back to the Big Bang, 1964.
Mm-hmm.
Beatles and Ed Sullivan. That's really the Big Bang as far as our universe goes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So my family leaves Cuba, moves to Miami, and we were relocated to New Jersey because there was not enough jobs in Miami at the time, and there was a major influx of Cubans coming in on flights, regular flights, and to support. I mean, we're talking about no jobs, no industry. So we go to New Jersey, and for the first time, I really experienced cultural division, cultural divide in urban New Jersey, West New York, let's say. I was living there, which meant, and I'm talking 1963, which meant that there were Irish neighborhoods, Polish, Italians, Jewish, no Latinos. Really, that was not a Latino neighborhood yet. There is now. I would say most of West New York is Latin, but not 60 years ago, right?
Yeah.
So I'm here, 1963. I'm in school. I was an outcast. Actually, it was the first time that I was actually named Rudy by my teacher in my school, public school number 5.
Mm-hmm.
And I had never heard the name Rudy before. I mean, as a matter of fact, I go in my first day of school and I sit on my desk, way in the back of the class, and I hear, as I'm putting my books inside my desk, I hear my teacher going, Rudy, I don't know what he's talking about. So I just happened to lift my head because he kept yelling Rudy, and he goes, yes, you. He points at me, and I go, Rudy, no, and he goes, and I go, no, Rudolfo. And he goes, no, from now on, you're Rudy. Okay, whatever. You know, so this is 1963, and then Kennedy gets shot, and it's like, wow, this is really bad. You know, everybody was in a big funk, you know, gloom and doom, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in school, you know, we were isolated. The Italians hung out with each other, the Irish hang out with each other, the Polish, you know, whatever, right? Okay. And you know, so I'm like really a loner and an outcast in school, and plus the language barrier. Okay, so you know, we got the holidays, gloom and doom again. You know, Kennedy just got shot, and then by February, after the holidays, February comes along, and this happens: the Beatles playing Ed Sullivan, and it's like, wow, something's going on. And my perception was, I see the Beatles, I see the girls going ape shit, and I go, I want that. Because, you know, I don't want to be invisible anymore, you know, and I think I got the key right here. This is it, right? So the next day I go to school, and all the kids all of a sudden were combing our hair forward. Not the pompadour anymore, kind of like, you know, like Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons. Now we're in a whole different thing. We're combing our hair forward. So we look at each other and we point and you go, you too? Kind of like we connect now.
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden, it's like, wait a minute, we belong to a tribe that really did not exist 24 hours before that. Right?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, you know, because I got my guitar, you know, in 63. Christmas of 63, because my parents felt really bad for my brother and me because we were so, you know, depressed because of what was going on. Because, you know, it was like the country was mourning. So my parents ordered a guitar, Spiegel catalog at our wives, and I'm like playing with, you know, trying to imitate what I hear on the radio. And it was mostly country and folk music, rock and roll. You know, again, the British invasion was not in full force yet. And so I knew, you know, maybe a couple little things to play. And now all of a sudden, if you play rock, if you're into not only just the Beatles, but the Stones and the Kinks and the Animals and Dave Clark, everybody that went through the Ed Sullivan Show, now we are all talking to each other. It's not the Irish hanging with each other and the Italians anymore. It's the rockers. This is it. This is the beginning of something new. And then that's how I started to socialize with everybody. You know, so for me, being in a band, I have never felt any racism in a band.
Okay.
In a band, I've never had. If I felt any racism, it would be outside of any musical situation.
Yeah.
You know, and yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, I felt some being alienated, feeling different from other people, but it was never any musical environment.
Okay. Moving on from the race question. Hey, how did it make you feel this year to hear that Randy was being inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame?
Wow. It was a surprise. I think it was a surprise for everybody.
It was, really.
A wonderful surprise. Wonderful, because, you know, up until now, the Hall of Fame, I never really acknowledged anything basically that happened in rock and roll between 1980 and 1990 or 92, whenever Nirvana, you know, showed up.
Yeah.
It was kind of like anything having to do with that. It's kind of like, you guys did not really exist. So just like historically, in my perception, I associate Randy with being maybe even that shift, that big bang, the metal big bang. that happened because, as a matter of fact, and this is my perception, and this has nothing to do with the contribution or musicality of the two people that I'm going to talk about, because I respect them equally, just as high. Of course, I lean more towards Randy because I know Randy better than I know Eddie Van Halen, because I never played with Eddie Van Halen, and I just talked with him mostly at the TV booth during them, and because he had, his
Wolfgangs,
for TV and amplifiers and so on, but see, if you look at Eddie Van Halen, he came in at a time which I would consider him the last guitar player of the 70s to get signed and really have success and put records out. After that came new wave and punk. So the shredder, he was influencing a lot of future shredders, but they didn't have a place to in the record industry to display what Eddie had taught them or influenced them, right? Not until like later on in the 80s, right? So here comes Randy, who as a local musician in Los Angeles, he had a following. He had he inspires certain musicians, but did not have that major impact in the consciousness like Eddie did until he moved over to England. And when I say moved, is because, he took everything with him.
Yeah.
And he went over, he started playing with Ozzy. And one very important question that Randy asked Ozzy with a very important answer was, what do you want me to write? And Ozzy said, just be yourself. And that's when Randy started digging in deep into his classical, not only love for classical music, but his training, because you can love I love jazz, but I can't go there and start making a jazz record, So he was trained as a classical guitarist and musician and composer. So that's what he was able to bring that in, right? So here comes Randy bringing this shift, right? It's the reinvented Ozzy Osbourne, reinvented because he was not the same Ozzy as he was in Black Sabbath. It's like a new Ozzy here with new music, new guitar player, new band.
Yeah.
And he comes out, and Randy all of a sudden is a part of the new wave of British metal. Just like the Beatles were part of the the British invasion. So here you have not only Ozzy, you got Motorhead, you got Def Leppard, you got Saxon, you got Iron Maiden, and the list goes on and on.
Yeah.
Of that musical influence that came out of England, that gave shredders, guitar players that were into being guitar players, not just part of the band, but being like a showpiece of the group.
A platform.
Yeah, a platform. It gave him the yin and yang, where if you put Randy and Eddie Van Halen, you got the full circle. The yin and yang.
Yeah.
Of what became known as the 80s guitar playing, right? Okay, so if you're going to acknowledge, or you're going to open the door in the Hall of Fame to start acknowledging that generation of music, what better place to start than by acknowledging Randy Rhoads?
Yeah. I don't think there is a better place to start than Randy Rhoads, personally, in my opinion.
Exactly. So not only is Randy Rhoads being acknowledged, but it's also opening the door at the pace that the Hall of Fame decides to go with, of also including bands that made their mark during during the 80s. It's opening up that door. I mean,
Yeah.
who are actually, who are of that ilk.
Yeah. Yeah.
The Motley Crues and so on,
I agree. You're pretty involved with the OPCA Shelter Network Alliance on your social media. Is that an organization that's near and dear to you?
Every single one of them is near and dear to me. More dear than near, because I really, I don't do any of the heavy lifting with any of these organizations. All I do is just create awareness.
Mm-hmm.
There's people who really devote their lives and passion to animal, shelters. Let's say Linda Blair, she left her acting career to just do what she loves, which is saving dogs, mainly pit bulls.
Mm-hmm.
And see, that to me are the real heroes of that. I'm just a guy, sharing information that these pets are available for adoption. That's all I do.
You're using your platform to create awareness for it.
Well, not just mine. I think everybody has a platform to share that information.
Yeah. That's amazing, man. That's great. I noticed that once I started, following you on social media, and I wanted to ask you about that. I didn't want to forget to ask you about that. There's a story you told me in the few minutes that we met a few years ago about since we brought up the Cirrus base earlier. Do you remember that story?
Yeah, of course.
Would you mind telling the origin of the Cirrus base? Because I went back and told my boss, and he was blown away. He thought it was a great. He really enjoyed probably my distorted version of telling him what you told me. So,
no, it's as a matter of fact, I'll give you where the missing link is, and there's proof of it. Okay, so here we go.
Deep breath.
Yeah. Before I joined Whitesnake, I was at a music store. I'll tell you which one it is exactly. It's called West LA Music in Santa Monica. I don't know if you've ever been there.
No.
West LA Music. Okay, it's kind of more like a mom and pop version of a Guitar Center. Back then, when this is 1986. Yeah, 86. When Guitar Center wasn't the the big chain store that it is now, because also Guitar Center was a mom and pop originally, and so at West LA Music, I'm looking at basses, and actually I'm checking out my own bass, my Washburn basses that they have been making for me, the ones with the stripes, the weird body shape and all that. So yeah, this is 86, and this is about the time this was the last time that I was checked my bass, hanging on the wall, picked it up, and I go, wow, I got to take my name off this, because this is horrible. I can't even play this, and it's my own bass, right? So right next to it, there is an Aria bass, and I'm going like, oh, this is like the bass John Taylor plays, and I go like, yeah, let me check it out, because hey, listen, I'm a bass player. I've been playing for a long time, and I can tell when I hear somebody play that there's certain roots and musical roots in them, and a style. So I hear Duran Duran. I go, wow, the bass player's got some great R&B roots. Wow, let me check them out. This is even before I saw the video. I had the Girls on Film cassette. When did that come out? Because whenever that came out, I bought it, and I had it in my bunk, and I will listen to it.
81. I'm sorry, 1981.
Okay, so it must have been with Ozzy. Okay, and because I listen to a lot of different. Are you kidding me? I would get off the stage, and in the afternoons, get off the stage, go to sleep, wake up in the afternoon, check into the hotel, take a shower, and go and get lunch. And I will bring my Walkman, because Walkmans had just been invented, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I got my Walkman, I got my headphones on. Yes, I'm touring with Ozzy, and I will listen either to Gino Vanelli, Night Walker. I will listen to Barry Manilow, Greatest Hits.
Nice.
Nice. I needed to cleanse my palate
Yeah.
before I went in and, and play metal, right? Okay. So I would buy all these non-metal records, stuff that I also liked, with really cool bass playing, Gino Vanelli always had great rhythm section with him, all great musicians. But anyways, getting back to Duran Duran. So I got that and I go, okay, this is great. I'm checking this out. There's a lot of cool techniques, slapping and plunking and all that going on. Cool tone. Yeah. Cool licks, riffs. Okay, great. And so, Duran Duran, they keep going. I keep going. I move on to Quiet Riot. Got my success on MTV. They have their success. So it's like, okay. So, I'm aware. I'm aware of what John Taylor's doing. Okay. So I grabbed the bass, the aria, and I go, wow, I love this. This is really cool. And I can see how you can, play certain techniques that he does and have that sound, that tone cut right through. Okay. It's a bass made for that, right? It's a bass made for John Taylor's technique that he uses with Duran Duran. It's a perfect match. And so I contact Aria and tell them that, that I'm interested in playing their bass. So they send me a bass and I started playing aria basses. And so what happens is when I started playing the aria basses, I say, you know what? There's a certain tone that I want to get that's different from John's, but still it's in the same, preamp family. And so I had already established a relationship with Bill Bartolini during Washburn, because my Washburn basses were outfitted with Bartolini pickups. And later on, I befriended Alembic also. And so I was putting on my arias, this is even before I started playing with Whitesnake, Bartolini's and Alembic electronics, right? Because it was more suitable for what I was doing. Okay. So then comes in Whitesnake and I started playing the basses. And the band gets really huge. The whole 87 tour that I did is me playing the aria basses with either Bartolini's or Alembic pickups. Okay. So PV asked me, Hardley, Adrian Vandenberg and I, went over Hardley's house and we were having lunch. And he says, listen, what I really want to do is to establish PV as a guitar brand. And I would like for you both to design me a signature model. So we both agreed, Adrian Vandenberg and myself. And I took a lot of what I really liked about the aria into my bass, the Sarzo model, right? And a lot of the things that I liked about Fender that I had been playing before that, right? So incorporate that into the Sarzo model. I start playing that. It gets great reviews. I got people like Verdine White and other great bass players playing it. Okay, so Whitesnake ends. They end the run of my signature model, but then they come up with a series. Now, one thing that you have to take into consideration is that my bass, the signature model, and the series are very familiar because they still retain some of that aria DNA in it, right? And what we did with the electronics with my pickups on my signature model is I brought in EMGs, Bartolini's, and Alembic pickups to have them scoped. And we took certain tonal qualities of it just to make it like a very well-rounded pickup. And so they carried that technology into the series. And I played the series, I believe, in 1990. It was either 97. Yeah, 97 at the NAMM show. The one that was in the room, there was this luthier, Mike Powers. Did you remember me, Mike? Okay, so Mike, and I go, Mike, I gotta have this bass. this is the greatest bass I've ever played. And he goes, yeah, look at it. It's virtually your bass. And I said, I know, but it's better. This is way better than my bass. This is what, this is what I dreamed that my bass would have been. And this is it right here. So he gives me that one, the one from the NAMM show. So I started playing the series. So it's got aria DNA all over it. And so when John Taylor started playing it, I go, of course he's gonna love that bass. So it probably reminds John of the Dream aria bass. Because I gotta say something about the aria. The necks were a little bit too chunky, and too thick. And
let's not forget of the weight of the aria either.
And the weight, that too. So I gotta tell you, the Cirrus, and I was telling you that I play mostly now my 6th string, not on stage, but at home. And I gotta tell you, to me it's home. It's home. When I put my hands on a Cirrus, even if it's a big 6-string neck, that's like, oh my God, yeah. And I started thinking, yeah, of course, no wonder you feel so comfortable, because it is, there's my DNA in it too,
Yeah.
And also there's John Taylor's DNA in it, just by association from the area in it.
Yeah. And if you watch his rig rundown, they ask him what he likes about the Cirrus bass, and he says it gives him, it reminds him of the arias he played. So exactly. And like I said, when I told him the story, mine was like, bits and pieces, but hopefully he'll listen to this and hear the real story.
Yeah. If you look at any of my photos with Whitesnake early on, that first tour, that's all I'm playing on stage. The aria bass, with either Bartolini's or Olympics,
Well, Rudy, the name of my podcast is called. It's funny because you said your thing is Breakfast with Rudy. The name of my podcast is called "Is Breakfast Included?" And if breakfast was included, Rudy, what would you have?
Oh, right now I'm on a protein kick, so I'll definitely have scrambled eggs, maybe one slice of toast, no butter, coffee, lots of coffee, like lots of coffee. Hopefully, maybe a cappuccino would be wonderful.
Nice. And
water, and a glass of water, so I can down my my vitamins.
I'm writing all this down, so next time I'm in LA, I'm taking you to breakfast.
Yeah, thank you.
I see you have some shows coming up with the Guess Who, so you guys are kicking back up, right? Now that.
Well, it's just basically the shows that we have booked last year. They were rescheduled for this year. So.
Okay. And as of right now, they're all happening, correct?
Well, just like last year, I will know until the flight is booked.
You won't know until you're doing a sound check, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Where can people find you on social media?
Well, they can find me at the Costco in Woodland Hills in the almond milk section around 10 a.m. because that 10 a.m. is the ending of the senior citizen time. Because at my age, I'm allowed to get in there at 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
And for anybody, and I'm gonna give you some good advice here. If you do that at 9 o'clock, make sure you go straight to the vitamin section, because 5 minutes later it's gonna be a gridlock. Of all the little scooters, that the shops of certain age have. Oh. And so just get that done first. Get your vitamins and your minerals and your supplements done first, and then get the hell out of that section.
And then head over to the almond milk.
That's right. Get over to the almond milk. Yeah.
Well, brother, man, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. Like I said, I just hit you up out of nowhere, and you said yes, which, really, it made me feel good. It gave me faith. I do want to tell you this, man. As a kid, as a teenager, I grew up here in Texas.
Where? Where in Texas?
I grew up just south of Dallas, a small town called
wow.
Corsicana, in between Dallas and Houston.
Yeah. Cool.
And being Mexican, you know, and being a rock fan, being a music fan, really, you know, I didn't know where I fit in anywhere there. And seeing guys like you and Carlos and Randy Castillo, I got to see people that looked like me and gave me that kick in the butt, that hope that I could do it too. Maybe one day I could do it. And I didn't quite reach your success, man, but I managed to stay in the music business all my life. You know, what I do, I've been around the world and I've done it on someone else's dime, you know? So I just wanted to thank you for just for being you, man. Like I said, you know, being a Latino in the South, we didn't get to see very many people that look like us achieve success. And you were one of them. So thanks, man. I looked up to you guys as a teenager.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Thank you. I mean, you know, to me, I have my own heroes. I mean, Santana, first time I heard him, I say, that's it. You know, this, to me, it was the first rock band that really got it. It got the blues. It was blue. You know, originally it was the Santana Blues Band. That's what it was called.
Yeah.
So there was definitely blues in there. And then you got the Afro, and it's like, where does the Afro-Cuban come from? Well, it comes from Africa. And where the blues come from? It comes from Africa. It's the yin and yang.
Yeah.
There you go. It's complete. You got blues and you got Afro, which is the same thing. But you know, it's like, wow, this is really complete rock and roll band from my perception of what rock and roll is all about, you know.
Yeah. Well, man, I don't want to keep you. Thank you for doing this, and man, good luck with everything. I'll be sure to see you guys when you come through.
Yes, thanks a lot. And you know, when you talk to John, tell him that I really have been enjoying the videos. I don't know if he's still doing them, but at the beginning of lockdown, he was doing a lot of little videos.
Oh, yeah, the tutorial videos he was doing. Like, like talking about the song and then breaking it down. Yeah.
Yeah, yes. It's really interesting to hear all the people's perceptions of where the music comes from.
Yeah, yeah, those are fun. I had a little bit to do with them, but not as much as you might think. I did some FaceTime teching for him.
Oh wow, cool, very cool.
But well, brother, you have a good day, and again, thank you so much for doing this.
Okay, God bless you.
All right,
looking forward to seeing you again, Bernie.
For sure, brother. Bye bye.
Okay, bye bye.
Right on. That was Rudy Sarzo. Great guy, huh? Like he said, you can catch him in the almond milk section of Costco, but if you're not in the area, make sure you catch him this summer and fall with the Guess Who. That's going to be a good time. Well, all right, guys, I'm done. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you next week.